Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. All people. The #1 player in the cultivation world. Chapter 21. Clang. With the sound of the sword, a greedy monster was chopped off. The corpse was thrown into the sky by the remaining power of the sword. Withered bones exploded indiscriminately. Boom. The entire corridor was trembling, and countless gravels were shaken down. The greedy monsters fell down in pieces. Beside Zhang Shuyu, many prompts popped up again, which made people dizzy. After 10 indiscriminate bombings in a row, the entire quarry dungeon continued to boom. The Jackal King had no chance to escape this time, and directly joined the corpse with honor. The first 2 levels are solved directly at one time. Zhang Shuyu continued to order the undead puppets to run towards the finish line. At this time, his experience points have accumulated half. It is only 5 minutes before he enters the instance. He couldn't help but click his tongue secretly. 3 minutes later, he saw the familiar greedy demon king again. At this time, the greedy demon king looked at the greedy demon people beside the throne. His eyes were full of doubts, as if he hadn't woken up yet. "Hello, greedy demon king, long time no see, I miss you so much, see you in 12 hours. Zhang Shuyu found a new way to clear the customs and was in a great mood. His smiling eyes completed the crescent moon, very beautiful, with the sunshine of a young man. In front of his smiling face, the undead puppets started the massacre mode again. Soul fire flickered in the Demon King's mind. Boom. The roar continued, almost blowing the entire dungeon into pieces. Experience points increase exponentially. A pile of materials drilled into the void storage domain by itself. Kill LV. 20 Greedy Demon King. Experience plus 50000. Get the orange rod of greed, ordinary monster beast core. Done. Knock off. The result this time, not yet reached level 18, just a little bit. Zhang Shuyu rubbed his ears. The dozens of consecutive explosions just now made his ears hurt. It's only 3 times away, and we may never see each other again in the future. Outside the dungeon, Zhang Shuyu casually glanced at the crowd, but didn't see a familiar face. There were a lot fewer people than before, but the excitement finally returned. He vaguely heard others talking about the Qingsong sect, but he didn't seem to get any information. In order to prevent the Qingsong sect to make trouble, he did not go too far this time, and found a quiet place to meditate. "Master, someone is approaching." The undead puppet sent him a voice transmission. Zhang Shuyu opened his eyes and saw the person coming. "Zhang Shuyu, what level are you now?" Shu Wan's originally delicate face was covered with dust, and there was still the bloody smell of the battle on her body. It seems that she just came out of the copy. LV. 17. Zhang Shuyu's tone was calm and his face was calm. "How is it possible? True or false?" Shu Wan looked at him in disbelief. "You know, she entered the dungeon twice, and she still formed a team with someone, so she only started from LV. 12 liters to LV. 13 only. After 2 battles, she was exhausted and was about to collapse. Even if Zhang Shuyu could brush the dungeon by himself, it shouldn't be so fast." Zhang Shuyu looked at her with a strange expression. "You asked, I told you, and I told you the truth, do you want me to justify it again?" But it's not that Shu Wan doesn't know Zhang Shuyu well, she knows that Zhang Shuyu won't lie. Because there is no need. Shu Wan bit her red lips tightly, her dissatisfaction getting worse. HMPH. I won't admit defeat. After finishing speaking, she stomped her feet and turned to leave. Obviously, the higher the level, the harder it is to upgrade. Zhang Shuyu is not the kind of genius that people can guess. But, she is also a genius. Zhang Shuyu looked at her back and didn't know how to react. It stands to reason that he has been taking the first place for so many years. Shu Wan should have gotten used to being the second child of 10,000 years. Either before awakening or after awakening. What's going on? Is there a bug? Zhang Shuyu looked dumbfounded, because Shu Wan went in again. "Didn't you say that the copy has a CD? He has obviously tried whether it is normal difficulty or difficult difficulty, the dungeon has a cooldown time. After finishing the hard difficulty, there is no way to enter the copy before the CD is over." Zhang Shuyu is sure that Shu Wan just came out of the dungeon, because the fighting breath on her body has not dissipated yet. Just keep an eye on it to see when Shu Wan will come out. 2 hours later, Shu Wan's figure reappeared, and as soon as she appeared, she looked at Zhang Shuyu. From far away, Zhang Shuyu could see the tiredness in her eyes. Then she rested for more than 10 minutes, and found another team to enter the instance again. Before she entered the dungeon, there was a treasure on her body that flowed gracefully. It seems that there should be such a thing. If there is a chance, I will go up and ask. It's just that this woman doesn't want her life. Keep fighting, even a man can't stand it. Forget it, don't care about her, anyway, it's not me who is competitive. While thinking about it, he settled down to recover. As a ghost cultivator, his spiritual power is extremely high, and now he has 960, far exceeding other attributes. After a few hours, there was a sound of heavy footsteps in Zhang Shuyu's ear. Shu Wan was exhausted and walked to Zhang Shuyu and sat down. It seems to be too much. So tired, she lay faceless on the grass, not afraid of the undead puppets around Zhang Shuyu at all. Anyway, this is her fellow student, so there is nothing to be afraid of. She closed her eyes comfortably, and lay down in meditation by the way. An hour later, she opened her eyes, and the stars were shining in her eyes. Let me tell you, this girl is already LV 15, and soon. I will catch up with you soon. LV 15. If you team up to brush a common copy, you need to brush at least 3 times to upgrade to a level. Zhang Shuyu looked at Shu Wan with a tired face, feeling a little puzzled. Shu Wan, don't you feel tired? Shu Wan rolled her eyes. Nonsense. Can you not be tired? My meridians all over my body are hurting now. If I can't move, I have to enter the instance again. Why do you fight so hard? Are you ashamed to ask? After being suppressed by you for so many years, I don't win once, and I feel uncomfortable. After Shu Wan finished speaking, she made a puff and blew the hair from her eyes away. Zhang Shuyu remained silent. It's really because of this. If I had known that he would randomly pick an exam and let her take the first place. After a minute of silence, Shu Wan opened her mouth in a low voice. Actually, it's not all because of this. You know, I also want to enter the Xuanwu Holy Land. If you want to enter Xuanwu Holy Land, you need at least LV 17. Insurance point LV 18 or LV 19. The safest one is of course LV 20. Now there are only 2 days left before the assessment, and Shu Wan will be LV if she dies. 17. I want to go a little higher. Zhang Shuyu's eyes lit up, and he tried to speak. Why don't you brush the copy of the difficulty level? Shu Wan sighed, looking at Zhang Shuyu like he was looking at a fool. Do you think I don't want to? But where is this kind of team easy to find? What's more, I'm only LV 15, no one wants it. She is an output, and this kind of monk is very demanding in the team. That's why this girl can only brush a few more normal level ones. I also know that if I die, it will be LV 17, but what if I'm lucky? After all, this girl, I can be said to be sleepless right now. After listening to her, Zhang Shuyu said, why don't you wait for the copy to be refreshed? When Shu Wan heard this, she sat up awkwardly, her pupils dilated. My God, there are things in this world that you, Zhang Shuyu, don't know. Zhang Shuyu squinted at her. I'm not an encyclopedia. PFF ha 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 ha. Shu Wan was amused. After laughing for a long time, seeing that Zhang Shuyu didn't respond, she suddenly felt that it wasn't fun anymore. Wu Mu, don't you think the cold joke you said is very funny? Suddenly I feel that you are a fake summoner, and you don't even know the time talisman. Zhang Shuyu tossed and turned in his mind, but he had no impression of this aspect at all. There is no record in the sect. It seems that he has read too few books. Shu Wan took out a talisman, with a stream of light on it, and a bunch of ghostly talismans drawn on it. She introduced, here, this is the time talisman. As long as you take it with you, you can offset the cooldown time of the copy. This is a primary level and can be used 10 times. I have used it 3 times. Bring it, LV. The dungeon refresh time below 25 is no longer your trouble. Shu Wan introduced it endlessly, as if possessed by a profiteer. Of course, she didn't intend to sell anything, but someone had the idea of buying something. Is this thing expensive? Shu Wan pressed her fist to her mouth and thought, I don't know, my father gave it to me, but judging from the pained expression on his face when he gave it to me, it should be quite expensive, right? The Shu family in Xuanyu City ranks high in the entire Shanghai County, one of the best big families. If it's something that Patriarch Shu thinks is expensive, it must be priceless. Zhang Shuyu immediately dismissed this dangerous thought. The remaining 7 times should be just enough for me, plus my own cooling time. At least I can enter the dungeon 9 times, so as to ensure that I can rise to LV 18. Shu Wan analyzed herself, and the image of the eldest lady instantly turned into a studious monk doll. Seeing the fish taking the bait, Zhang Shuyu pursed his lips and said with a smile, I can take you to the dungeon, and I can also guarantee you to upgrade to LV 18. Most importantly, you don't need to do anything. ! Shu Wan had a flash of inspiration. That's right, how did I forget that there is a master who can single-handedly brush beside me? In fact, it's not that she hasn't thought about it, but she knows that the experience points of solo brushing must be much more than that of pairing, so she didn't think about Zhang Shuyu. Pride doesn't allow it. Now that Zhang Shuyu has offered to form a team of 2, he has even more experience. Anyway, if I don't form a team with him, I can't guarantee that I will be able to catch up with him. It doesn't matter. As long as you can advance to the Xuanwu Holy Land, this proposal is very good. I promise you, let's use this talisman together. Zhang Shuyu knew that Shu Wan would definitely agree. Anyone with a little brain will know that this is a good deal. For him, although the experience is much less, the more times he gains, the more he will gain. Then let's not waste time, let's go in now. Shu Wan tried to leave, but Zhang Shuyu dissuaded her, I still have 1 hour of cooldown. After a little calculation, Shu Wan immediately agreed. Okay, if that's the case, I'll sleep for an hour first. Remember to call me later. After finishing speaking, she turned around and went to sit beside Zhang Shuyu, lay down, and closed her eyes. It was in front of Zhang Shuyu that Shu Wan was so defenseless. Zhang Shuyu has been her old opponent for many years, and she knows his character very well. She was covered with a small quilt and fell asleep soundly. The undead puppet continued to protect the Dharma, and Zhang Shuyu continued to enter meditation. 2 hours later, wake up, let's go. Zhang Shuyu patted her on the shoulder. Shu Wan opened her eyes with difficulty and yawned, isn't it so fast? The two stood up together, Shu Wan stretched. No matter how loose the Taoist robe is, her beautiful curves are still faintly visible. Standing with Zhang Shuyu, a golden boy and a jade girl, is like a beautiful landscape. If you don't look at the undead puppet. After Shu Wan drank a little water, she immediately became sober and refreshed. Zhang Shuyu led her to the front of the whirlpool. Shu Wan took out the talisman, and a flash of light flashed on her body. Okay, the cooling time is refreshed. Zhang Shuyu nodded and clicked on difficulty level. Shu Wan's heart skipped a beat. Zhang Shuyu, you made a mistake. Before the words fell, the two had disappeared in front of the dungeon. Shu Wan, who entered the dungeon, felt the coercion of the dungeon, her heart palpitating unceasingly. She held the book and stood slightly behind Zhang Shuyu. Zhang Shuyu, are you crazy? Or slippery? Zhang Shuyu chuckled, just wait and see. Shu Wan swallowed, and threw a detection technique. Behind the door, it looks like a general-level monster, walking back and forth. Whether its attributes or appearance, it's not as easy to deal with as monsters in the ordinary level. You're going to run after me in a while. Shu Wan hasn't recovered yet. Ah, what are you running for? Did I hear correctly? The general-level monster stared at Shu Wan at this moment, making her feel scared. If it weren't for Zhang Shuyu's guarantee, she almost mistakenly thought that she was going to be murdered to silence her. Crunch. 95 undead puppets gathered together. Shu Wan was dumbfounded. Under her horrified gaze, Zhang Shuyu opened the door of the dungeon. The undead puppet aggressively rushed towards more than a dozen passages in the quarry. He is already familiar with this style of play. The general-level monster behind the door ran wildly after the undead puppet, and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Come with me. Zhang Shuyu's tone was obviously a little excited. Shu Wan murmured, can you still play like this? What's wrong? Hurry up and keep up. I remember that you are not a coward. Seeing that Shu Wan didn't keep up, Zhang Shuyu said something in passing, which almost made the young lady lose her temper. You are the coward. Unconvinced, She chased after Zhang Shuyu angrily. This dungeon is again the same as Zhang Shuyu's last visit. You run, he chases, and I finally run wildly. Oh no What are you doing? What kind of tactic is this? Zhang Shuyu glanced at her sideways, did not speak, and continued to look at the road ahead. It's mysterious, forget it. Let's not talk about this girl and see for yourself. Zhang Shuyu was speechless. Don't you know that you can get out of breath when you talk while running? Really ignorant of science. Forget it, there is no science to talk about in the realm of comprehension. Passing through a long passage, Shu Wan saw the Jackal King of the quarry. This Jackal King is a whole circle bigger than the quarry Jackal King in the general dungeon. Shu Wan can guess without detection skills, this big guy is not easy. At this time, the undead puppet also ran to the Jackal King. Many monsters are still biting the shoulders, legs, and arms of some puppets. Shu Wan stood panting at the door of the corridor, and looked at Zhang Shuyu suspiciously. Why don't you do it? I'll do it right away. When all the monsters arrived, several undead puppets suddenly raised their swords and jumped into the air at the same time. Clang! With the sound of the sword, a general-level monster died suddenly. Seeing the corpse of the monster being thrown into the air, Zhang Shuyu also raised his hand. Bones exploded indiscriminately. Boom! Bang! The gravel fell to the ground, and many monsters were blown to pieces. Shu Wan watched helplessly as her experience bar rose rapidly. 30%. She was shocked. I have never heard anyone say that a copy can still be played like this. Boom! There were several more explosions, and the Jackal King of the quarry screamed and was finally submerged in countless stones and corpses. Dead, dead, she swallowed. You know, when she met the Jackal King in the normal level dungeon before, she discussed the details of the battle with the other two teammates, and only dared to do it after assigning tasks. It will take 2 sticks of incense from the whole process to the death of the Jackal King. But here at Zhang Shuyu, instant kill, she suddenly felt a tingling sensation in her scalp. Where is playing a copy here? She finally knew why Zhang Shuyu leveled up so quickly. Zhang Shuyu was so excited that he didn't notice her abnormality and waved forward. Keep running. The undead puppet has passed through the corridor and is running towards the finish line. Shu Wan regained her composure and quickly caught up with Zhang Shuyu. Since you came here, have you been brushing difficult dungeons alone? Zhang Shuyu slowed down. Yes, and also, try not to talk while running. After speaking, he quickened his pace and ran forward again. Shu Wan was choked, and was shocked beyond belief. After Zhang Shuyu left from the rookie dungeon, he actually cleaned up the difficult dungeon by himself. Who would believe such a thing? It is said that a monk killed a hard-level dungeon alone, but he died, but it is more believable. She was sure that if it wasn't for the dungeon's refresh time, Zhang Shuyu would probably be LV now, 25 now. Abnormal, she cursed in her heart. In less than 10 minutes, Shu Wan had already seen the greedy Demon King in the difficult dungeon. The voice of the greedy Demon King was sharp and coercive, making her feel breathless. But Zhang Shuyu is still calm. After more than a dozen explosions, the entire deep pit returned to calm. Kill LV. 20 Greedy Demon King. EXP plus 25,000. Obtain orange level Greedy Sword, Ordinary Monster Beast Core. An upgraded light appeared on Zhang Shuyu, LV. 18. You actually upgraded. Shu Wan's eyes widened. Zhang Shuyu nodded slightly. Yes, it was almost the same last time. It was resolved within 10 minutes, and Shu Wan was numb. What else is there to practice? If you brush the dungeon every day, you don't have to enter the Xuanwu Holy Land. Wouldn't it be nice to just brush up to a full-level master? The slander in her heart has been exhausted since the Jackal King's death. Moving her eyes to the prize, she sighed again. Zhang Shuyu didn't know why. Why are you sighing? No staff. What do you want a staff for? Shu Wandai frowned slightly. Don't you know that the staff of the greedy Demon King is the best weapon for monks before LV? 25. Zhang Shuyu shook his head. I don't know. Open black lens bracket greedy demon staff close black lens bracket. With that said, he took out this thing and threw it to Shu Wan. Shu Wan caught it subconsciously, and when she saw it clearly, she looked at Zhang Shuyu suspiciously. Give it to you, it's useless for me to hold it. Question mark question mark question mark. Shu Wan had a black question mark face on her head. Then what do you use? This. With a wave of Zhang Shuyu's hand, a magic book floated above his palm. Open black lens bracket greedy magic book close black lens bracket. Although both the book and the staff are the weapons of summoning cultivators, the staff is more practical. Because sometimes it can be used to block the enemy's attack, or, knock people. Fine. Shu Wan didn't understand what he did, but she never saw him take it out from the beginning to the end. Also, there are so many undead puppets, why do we need them? At this time, Zhang Shuyu was indulging in calculations. Originally, he expected that the experience value would only increase by 12% after forming a team, but it turned out to be only 8%. Although Shu only shared part of the experience, it was still much slower. Shu Wan's elementary time talisman can also allow 2 people to form a team to do 3 rounds. 3 rounds is half an hour, and there are 2 natural CDs, so there are still 5 dungeons to be done. In the last 2 rounds, Shu Wan must be taken with him. He can't do such a thing as throwing away after using it. However, it is enough to rise to LV 20. Greedy Demon King, I'm sorry. We may have to meet again 5 times. Shu Wan suddenly felt that Zhang Shuyu was a secondary school student. Boss can't understand you again, what's the point? Zhang Shuyu thought about it again, and didn't know why he said these words. I say mine, and she listens to hers. Whether I can understand it or not is out of my consideration. Shu Wanyu sighed leisurely. The behavior of this wood is always unexpected. I don't know how many monks died at their hands, and the bosses are not all weak, it depends on the person. Most importantly, they will all refresh. You're pretty cute. Zhang Shuyu narrowed his eyes. Girl, your idea is dangerous, please put it away. Let's go. After Zhang Shuyu finished speaking, he left without looking back. Shu Wan was in a good mood, holding the stick of greed, bouncing after him. 10 seconds later, the 2 reappeared in the copy. It's just that Shu Wan at this time no longer looked scared like before, and was even a little excited. And in high spirits. Run, she urged. Zhang Shuyu was stunned for a second. Do you have a fever? Shu Wan squeezed her fist and beat his arm. FKU, you just have a fever. That's good, so that when I go back to the suzerain and see it, I will think that I brought my fellow disciples into the dungeon, and the fellow disciples will get sick in the end. Hey, this girl is not so weak, okay. Shu Wan rolled her eyes. 10 minutes later, the majestic difficult level boss Greedy Demon King once again fell on the throne in humiliation. The unwilling eyes of the Greedy Demon King seemed to be saying, brother, please don't come. Just leave as soon as you finish brushing. Zhang Shuyu's pupils are still crescent-like. Just 4 more times. ... The 4 times were over. Less than half an hour before and after, Shu Wan carefully folded the talismans and put them back in the void storage domain. What did you put it away for? Take it back and input spiritual energy. I said it before. Zhang Shuyu snorted, forgot. In fact, he didn't listen to the latter at all, because the process seemed very cumbersome, and he was not a weapon master, so he was too lazy to waste time studying it. At this time, Shu Wan has reached LV 17, 50%, twice more, LV 18A certainty. Zhang Shuyu is already LV 19. Shu Wan looked excited. I've reached LV 17 before the assessment. It seems that there is no problem entering the Xuanwu Holy Land this time. At this moment Shu Wan no longer has the desire to compare with Zhang Shuyu. I remember you were about to level up, right? At that time, my LV 17, your LV 20, both of us can enter the Xuanwu Holy Land. At that time, Sect Master Ning will have a lot of fun. It is a great honor for all suzerains that some disciples can enter the Xuanwu Holy Land. After all, the prestige of the Xuanwu Holy Land is obvious to all, and everyone who can enter it is a genius. The Xuanwu Holy Land only accepts 1,000 disciples from the Xuanwu continent every year. Many of the places are occupied by some big families or big sects, and the resources of the disciples of the small sects are not as rich as theirs, so they have to compete for places. Difficult. Just last year when Zhang Shuli entered the Xuanwu Holy Land, Ning Jie celebrated in the entire sect for several days. Zhang Yuyan many years ago, now the honorary elder, is still used by Ning Jie as a role model for all disciples to learn from. The two found a quiet place to sit on the ground. Hey, Wood, do you want to try to win the county chief? Shu Wan looked at Zhang Shuyu with great interest. Is there any use? Zhang Shuyu looked at her. Of course it's useful. The chief of the county can get a lot of contribution points. In Xuanwu Holy Land, contribution points are very important. More importantly, you can also have the opportunity to enter Shendao Peak. It's Shinto Peak again. Zhang Shuyu rolled his eyes. How much do you know about Shendao Peak? Shu Wan put her arms on the grass and looked at the sky. Actually, I only know the general idea. I just heard what my father said. The Holy Land of Xuanwu is the most powerful holy place on the Xuanwu continent. The characters in Shendao Peak are the arrogants among the arrogants, and the resources are also richer than other peaks. But my father said, I don't have any chance to go in. But I think you can. Elder Zhang Yuyan went in, and it was the first one from our Xuanwu city, and it hasn't happened since then. Shu Wan spoke the truth. Because of Zhang Shuyu's various operations when he took her to brush the dungeon, she was convinced. With such a flexible mind and such a strong talent, she now feels that she cannot look at Zhang Shuyu from the perspective of ordinary people. Okay, if there is a chance, I will try it. He will definitely enter the Xuanwu Holy Land, because his sister is here, and as for the Shendao Peak, of course he will give it a try. Isn't that Sun Yangyang? Shu Wan's eyes lit up. She sat up and pointed in one direction. Sure enough, it was him. Before Zhang Shuyu could make a move, Shu Wan had already lost her detection technique and got the news. I really can't tell. This stupid big guy is already at LV 13. It's a pity that he is a defensive technique repairer. Not many people want to form a team. The requirements for tanks are higher than the output, otherwise they will not be able to fight at all. Even if they are of average level, at least LV is required for team formation. 16. Sure enough, the two saw Sun Yangyang turning around, and finally looked at the vast crowd, sighing. Zhang Shuyu raised his eyebrows and looked at Shu Wan. Let's take him with us. Shu Wan smiled knowingly. Of course I'm fine. Anyway, I don't need to do anything. When Sun Yangyang saw the two, his big eyes rolled around, and his smile was meaningful. You too. Unfortunately, he was interrupted before he could finish speaking. Be careful with your mouth. Miss Ben's staff is very hungry and thirsty. Shu Wan has always been extremely arrogant, but she will restrain herself a little in front of Zhang Shuyu. Of course, only a few points. After all, Zhang Shuyu is more arrogant than her, if so. The two will not team up together. Sun Yangyang widened his eyes and stretched out his hands. Don't. I was wrong. Just kidding. Hee. By the way, what are you calling me for? Zhang Shuyu looked at him indifferently. I'll take you to brush up the dungeon together. Sun Yangyang was stunned and jumped back a step. Brother, are you joking? Shu Wan gave him a blank look. Of course I'm not joking. I'll take you in when the cooldown time for both of us is over. Anyway, before the assessment, LV 15 is not a problem. Sun Yangyang was so excited that he wanted to kneel down. The two are really my great benefactors. The Holy Land I want to enter must be at least LV 15 to be sure. After speaking, he hugged Zhang Shuyu excitedly. Zhang Shuyu's face darkened, and he spoke speechlessly. Sun Yangyang, please be normal, or I won't take you. Ahem, boss, I was wrong. Sun Yangyang immediately raised his hand and surrendered. I just don't know when you two will start. Shu Wan calculated, there are still 5 hours. Sun Yangyang looked up at the blue sky helplessly. He knew in his heart that although it took a long time, he might not be able to find other monks to form a team. Okay, both of you rest slowly, and the younger one will go fight monsters and wait for you. After finishing speaking, he ran away like a jerk, turned around and shouted, Come on boss, I am optimistic about you. You will definitely be able to take down Shu Wan as soon as possible. Swish, Shu Wan threw a fireball mercilessly and chased Sun Yangyang out. National Quintessence. The fireball chased after Sun Yangyang's buttocks, and Sun Yangyang gradually disappeared. Shu Wan crossed her arms. This big fool. You have to clean up, to be honest. Zhang Shuyu held his forehead. Brother, it's not that buddies don't save you, it's really. I want to punch you too. After 10 hours, Zhang Shuyu's team became 3 people. Snapped. As soon as he entered the copy, Sun Yangyang was so frightened that he fell to the ground. Boss, Shu Qianjun, are you sure you didn't go wrong? How could it be difficult? Shu Wan wanted to laugh in her heart. She was similar to him when she entered this dungeon for the first time. But she rolled her eyes anyway. You don't need to do it, it's just that you need to lose weight later. Sun Yangyang's eyes were full of surprise, and he swallowed several mouthfuls of saliva before calming down. Although he didn't understand what it meant, it shouldn't be a problem to follow suit. 10 minutes later, he looked at the dead boss out of breath, and the mystery in his heart was instantly solved. Is this the end? Sun Yangyang suddenly hugged Zhang Shuyu, who was glowing. Boss, can you take me with you in the dungeon in the future? I'll give you a pendant. Seeing him wanting to lick Zhang Shuyu, Shu Wan was speechless. Sun Yangyang, you are a surgery repairer. Can you be a little arrogant? What is arrogance? Do you eat it as a meal? No. Besides, I will treat my boss as a pendant, and it has nothing to do with the presence or absence of arrogance. This is brotherhood. During the quarrel between the two, Zhang Shuyu has already been upgraded and reached LV 20. Now that he has full confidence, Shu Wan will be able to reach LV once again. 18. Sun Yangyang's goal is the Holy Land of Coriander in Coriander County, which is not bad. LV 18 is enough. The sun was setting to the west, pink and purple met in the sky, and several figures overlapped on the south wall of Xuanyu City. Several suzerains looked at the endless suburbs and talked. The assessment will be tomorrow. Should these children come back? I don't know when the children will come back. What will happen tomorrow? Most of them should be fine. It depends on the strength of the Holy Land. By the way, Lao Ning, those two geniuses from your sector going to enter the Xuanwu Holy Land? Yes. Both Shuyu and Shu Wan want to enter Xuanwu. Ning Jie's gaze remained motionless, looking ahead, hoping to see the figures of the two. It's difficult. In previous years, it was LV. Only 18 can be said to be relatively confident. Yes, if you want to be sure of winning, it is LV 20. But in Xuanyu City, besides Zhang Yuyan, only last year's Zhang Shuli met this requirement, right? I trust them, Ning Jie said firmly. Sudden. The first figure appears. It's my Zan Yuzong disciple who has returned. Open black lens bracket LV 15 swordsman Lu Wenyu. The suzerain of Xuanyuzong is very satisfied. LV 15 has been able to enter a very good holy place. Moreover, Lu Wenyu is also one of the great geniuses of Zan Yuzong. My Zan Yuzong's disciples are back. Open black lens bracket LV 16 focus on shooter baby 9. It's a disciple of my Xuanling sect. This big exam is not only a competition between disciples, but also a competition among suzerains. Sparks flickered in the eyes of several people, and they competed secretly. Of course, there is also the meaning of waiting for Zhang Shuyu and Shu Wan to come back and watch the joke. After all, it is not so easy to enter the Xuanwu Holy Land. All the disciples returned, most of them were in LV 12 to LV between 16, the rankings of suzerains are also constantly rotating. But no one has the upper hand. The sky is getting darker and darker, the moon is bright and the stars are thinning. Ning Jie became anxious. Why haven't you seen Zhang Shuyu, Shu Wan and Sun Yangyang? Did something happen to these three people? Just when he was in a hurry to get angry, hovering on the city wall and looking at the suburbs from time to time. Old Ning, don't turn around. Quickly see if that is your disciple. Ning Jie immediately stopped and looked out of the city with his heart in his hands. It happened to be three figures. Several detection techniques flew out together. Open black lens bracket LV 15 shield warrior advanced Sun Yangyang. Open black lens bracket LV 18 elemental summoner rare Shu Wan. The suzerains all opened their eyes in disbelief. Shu Wan, really LV 18. At least 80% sure to enter the Xuanwu Holy Land. And as long as there are no mistakes in the assessment, you will definitely be able to enter. Nearby, open black lens bracket LV 20 ghost cultivator necromancer, the only hidden, Zhang Shuyu. Seeing Zhang Shuyu's level, the suzerains really felt like they saw a ghost. The sect of Xuanyu City released another LV this year. 20. The suzerains were dumbfounded, and they moved their heads to look at Ning Jie in a daze. A winner in life. Now someone can let him hang on his lips for several years. No, decades. Look at the weapons in their hands. They are all from dungeons. It seems that these 3 disciples have brushed it many times, and the probability of dropping weapons is very low. At this time, the suzerains who hadn't calculated carefully thought that the 3 of them were creating a general-level dungeon. Maybe they're lucky, a suzerain said sourly. But the winner in life, Ning Jie, doesn't care about such sour words at all. If sour words can bring him 2 talents, then please come for a lifetime. Ning Jie smiled and looked at the 3 people who walked into the city. Shu Yu, Shu Wan, Yang Yang, the 3 of you wait on the back of Zongui first, and some of you from the same family have not arrived yet. Both Zhang Shuyu and Shu Wan clasped their fists in salute and nodded in response. Sun Yang Yang was so excited that he jumped up and waved his hands. Follow the suzerain. We know. Ning Jie waved his hands with a smile. Shu Yu, Shu Wan, these 2 children are steady. That kid Yang Yang is lively. Give face. On the back of the black turtle. Disciples, you have worked hard these days, and seeing you come back intact and safe is the comfort of the suzerain. Let's rest well tonight, gather in Zongmin Square tomorrow morning, and then I will send you to Tianmo City. Flying boats need spirit stones to drive them, but they consume a lot of energy, and sects generally don't use them. Only once a year. After all, Xuanyu sect is not a big sect, and Xuanyu City is just an inconspicuous medium-sized city in Coriander County, with limited financial resources. And Tianmo City is the central city of Shanghai County, a truly large city, so it is the destination of the annual exam. Tomorrow, the entire Xuanwu continent will raise the curtain of the big exam together. Tonight, Zhang Shuyu sat in meditation in his small yard without worrying about any accidents. He is confident that he can enter the Xuanwu Holy Land. Of course, if he can compete for the chief position, he will not let it go. Originally, he had no pursuit, just curious about how to play in this world of comprehension, and followed in the footsteps of his only relative. But both Balixi and Shu Wan mentioned Shendao Peak to him, which made him curious. The next morning, Zhang Shuyu opened his eyes that had been silent all night, his eyes flickering. At this moment, his whole spirit has reached the peak of its fullest. 119 undead puppets, all 4 attributes are 6,200 now. There are also his 2 open skills. If he can't get in this time, no one will be able to get in. Boom boom boom. Boss, let's go. Sun Yang Yang learned the lesson from last time, and this time he planned to block the door directly. After all, after this time, I don't know if we can meet again in the future. Zhang Shuyu stood up and went directly to open the door. It's so early. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Sun Yang Yang. Hey, of course, this exam is so important. Sun Yang Yang grinned, with his hips akimbo. When we arrived at Zongmin Square, there were already dense crowds, and there were many other disciples who came to see the excitement. There are 2 popular candidates for this exam. On Zhang Shuyu's side, everyone was frightened by his icy breath and did not dare to approach him. On Shu Wan's side, many disciples gathered around, discussing the assessment with her one after another. Noticing Zhang Shuyu approaching, Shu Wan bid farewell to her classmates and walked over. Everyone saw Shu Wan talking to Zhang Shuyu in a pleasant manner like a ghost, without any provocative intentions before, and they were all shocked for a moment. How are you resting? Shu Wanru spoke softly, put away her sharp edge, and treated Zhang Shuyu with rare kindness. Not bad. Zhang Shuyu is concise and to the point. Then, see you at the Xuanwu Holy Land, senior brother Zhang. The corners of Zhang Shuyu's lips rose. Unexpectedly Shu Wan had already passed that test. She no longer had too many thoughts of competing with him, and her Taoist heart became much more stable. Of course, later facts proved that it was just, not too much. See you at Xuanwu Holy Land. Ning Jie looked down at his disciples in the air with his hands behind his back. Very good, it seems that everyone is here. A bell-like sound swept across the entire square. Irrelevant disciples, please leave the square. After a rustling sound, many brothers and sisters left the square, looking at the suzerain expectantly. Zhang Shuyu remembers that he was one of them last year. He also hopes that his sister can walk out of her own way to be strong. Well, disciples, are you ready? Okay. The practitioners on the square were all excited and said in unison. Then let me say one last thing. Regardless of the assessment, you must ensure your own safety. Only by surviving will you have a chance. Well, It's the same thing as last year. Zhang Shuyu sometimes wondered if the suzerain was an NPC. Set off. Sect Master Ning landed in the square, and several elders put down several large pieces of spirit stones together. A beam of light erupted from the pattern of the square, pointing directly at the sky. Buzz. All the disciples only heard the buzzing sound in their ears, and in a blink of an eye, the surrounding scene changed in a blink of an eye. There are a total of more than 10 cities in Shanghai County, and the candidates were sent over one after another. There are thousands of people in total. Over the entire assessment square, the buzzing sound of the teleportation array kept ringing, and it stopped shortly after. The hour has come. An old voice surrounded the entire assessment square. Next, I will announce some detailed rules. Candidates, please do not raise your voice or ask questions. Those who violate the rules will be expelled on the spot and will be disqualified from the examination. It's really domineering. You can't even ask questions. How can you not make a sound? What if you can't hold your fart? A few people muttered a few words curiously, feeling a little dissatisfied. A few beams of light appeared on the spot, and then they disappeared in place. Seeing such a scene, the rest of the people were silent as if they dared to cause trouble. After so many years of preparation, isn't it just for this moment? Zhang Shuyu looked at Sun Yangyang, who was always lively and talkative beside him, as expected. The big stupid man was covering his mouth, afraid that he would be thrown out if he ran the train. Seeing this, Zhang Shuyu laughed secretly in his heart, and at the same time, he also had a new understanding of the need to follow the assessment regulations repeatedly emphasized by Sect Master Ning. The owner of that voice seemed satisfied. He glanced at the candidates under the clouds before speaking leisurely. According to the cultivation methods of each candidate, this assessment will be divided into technique training and law training. Of course, the difficulty of each level can be selected, and the corresponding scores are also different. Assessment scores will be equally converted into contribution points, and they will be a must for you in the Holy Land in the future. They can be used as spirit stones, but their value is far more than spirit stones. After all candidates enter the assessment site, the void storage area will be blocked, and no treasures can be used, only equipment can be used. Attention! Do not use any treasures, otherwise you will be directly disqualified from the exam. As long as the brain is functioning normally, these rules can be understood. Many people feel sorry for those people, or laugh at them. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and a tower fell from the sky, blowing up against the wind. The leaves on the ground were pushed away by the wind pressure at the bottom of the tower, and everyone could only hear the whirring sound. This tower is called the Trial Tower. I hope all candidates can achieve good results. Now start to arrange according to the serial numbers of the jade symbols on your waist. At the same time, a pendant appeared on the waists of all the candidates, and the white jade plaques were radiant and full of aura. The candidates all consciously found a place to line up, and they were extremely disciplined. Even the second generation, who is usually violent and domineering, has restrained his edge. For example, the young master of the Green Pine sect, He Yudong. Being used to being flattered, he saw that the second generation of many big cities and big forces kept themselves safe, so he had to put away his usual demeanor. On this day, there were hundreds of thousands of people participating in the big exam in the entire Xuanwu continent. Many of the mainland's top experts are paying attention to this assessment. If someone dares to act recklessly, it is asking for trouble. Zhang Shuyu followed the guidance to the central formation on the first floor of the trial tower, and the lines of the formation began to spin. Like the information he had found unread, this exam was very similar to a dungeon, and the examinee would be sent to different places. Really curious, what kind of assessment he will face. On the top floor of the trial tower, there are many light curtains on a circular platform, and you can see the performance of the candidates. Several examiners were sitting on chairs, looking at the light curtain on the round platform below. There are all kinds of cultivation methods and techniques, but they all have one common feature: no one is lower than LV. 87. Open black lens bracket LV. 20 Ghost Cultivator Necromancer, the only hidden, Zhang Shuyu. The picture of Zhang Shuyu on the first floor just now appeared in front of the examiners. In addition to his handsome face, what is more interesting is Ghost Repair, or the only one hidden. I know this child, it belongs to Xuanyu City, and it was reported at that time. LV at a young age. 20 years old, with good potential. Hey, you've lost the topic, aren't we going to discuss how to grade him? How can this be decided? This child's way of cultivation is unique. Could it be like last time? It's not impossible. Isn't the forest priest 40 years ago the only one? How about we make this child the same rare level as the forest priest? Well, I think it is. And the information shows that he is a skill repairer, so let's do it according to the rare level of skill repair. Several examiners reached a consensus and immediately made a decision. At the same time, a monster appeared in a lake where Zhang Shuyu was. The blue curly-haired mermaid holding a staff has a pair of beautiful blue eyes and a silver tail, which is a branch of the royal family. He wanted to cast a detection technique to see the opponent's data, but he was stopped by a white net-shaped barrier when he was only 1 meter in front of the monster. Assessment task. Kill the mermaid magician. Open black lens bracket countdown. 3 close black lens bracket. ... Zhang Shuyu didn't expect the assessment to be so straightforward, so he immediately reacted and summoned an undead puppet. At the moment when the enchantment disappeared, the undead puppet rushed forward with a sword in hand. But soul fire is faster. The moment the barrier disappeared, it appeared on the mermaid's head. Ah, plop. The poor and beautiful mermaid died before she had a chance to raise the staff in her hand and fell into the lake. Zhang Shuyu was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the mermaid to be so careless. That's it. Of course, he wasn't the only one who was dumbfounded. What skill does Zhang Shuyu use? The countdown has just ended. Are you sure the classification is rare? An examiner glanced suspiciously at the board. That's right. It's the difficulty level of uncommon, LV. 22, 2 levels higher than Zhang Shuyu. Low-level and middle-level monks challenge monsters of the same level, and high-level monks challenge monsters that are 1 level higher than themselves, rarely 2 levels. Moreover, the way of cultivating monsters is the same as that of candidates, sword cultivator versus sword cultivator, archer versus archer. It is to assess the combat ability of the candidates more closely, so that it is convenient to see their combat performance. Under normal circumstances, it takes a few minutes to solve it. Among the assessments in the entire Shanghai County over the years, the fastest one takes a few seconds. There is a precedent for monsters dying right after the assessment begins. Unique. At this moment, the young man in red who had been silent at the top of the center spoke up. Let's give him a trial according to the legendary level. Master Dong Guo, wouldn't this be unfair to him? Some examiners replied tremblingly. The young man in red smiled. Hee. Isn't there no one in the records who cleared the level instantly? If this is not the case, in this level, it will be designated as the first name first, and it will be calculated according to 100 points for the first name. If he can pass the test, then I will give him 10,000 contribution points from my personal pocket. When the examiners heard the last sentence, they panicked. How is this possible? As the examiner, we are free to do it. How can we make you spend money? The young man in red smiled lightly, tapped the handle of the chair with his white fingers, and curled his lips. It's all trivial. Let's give this kid a try first. You have to touch his bottom, don't you? As soon as Dong Guoxingyang said this, all the people who didn't know what to do found their backbone in an instant. Master Dong Guo's words are justified. We really want to know how strong he is. Yeah, I've never seen a ghost cultivator before, so I'm really looking forward to it. Sitting cross-legged in place, Zhang Shuyu waited for several minutes before he heard a voice. Candidates are asked to continue with the second assessment. After Zhang Shuyu stood up, another mermaid appeared in the lake, but its breath was much stronger than before. Assessment task. Kill the mermaid magician. Open black lens bracket countdown. 3 close black lens bracket. I don't know that I am the first Zhang Shuyu to take the test in history, and it is still after the barrier is removed. Oh, as soon as the mermaid magician screamed, the top floor of the trial tower was completely silent for a moment, and then heated discussions erupted. What's the situation? It's still solved as soon as it appears on the stage. How do you think about it? I haven't seen it before in the legend. The skill is so strong, is it possible to continue to test? After the discussion, all the examiners looked at the young man in red in unison. Don't worry, let's do it. Don't we still have a 5th round? Dong Guo Jingyang said such a sentence lightly, and everyone suddenly felt that they were in a hurry. After all, it is not the same thing to keep adding tests, it is unfair. Yes, we can slowly see how Zhang Shuyu performs. Coincidentally, everyone had completed the first round of testing at this time. In front of Zhang Shuyu, a pop-up window popped up. Open black lens bracket. The first round of assessment ranking. Close black lens bracket. First place, Zhang Shuyu, 0.1 second. Reward, contribution value 100. Second place, Anhui, 2.9 seconds. Reward, contribution value 80. Third place, Xu Wan, 4.2 seconds. Reward, contribution value 50. Fourth place, He Yudong, 6.3 seconds. Reward, contribution value 30. Starting from the fifth place, everyone's contribution value is only 20. After seeing 1024 candidates, only 512 were left in the first round. Zhang Shuyu couldn't help being speechless. Tisk tisk, so cruel, my grades here seem to be too crushing. However, he originally wanted to take the first place. He didn't intend to hide his strength for the sake of keeping a low profile. He had to enter the Xuanwu Holy Land. But the focus of others is obviously not here. But I knew that pervert Zhang Shuyu must be number one. Oh. My elder brother is number one. Mighty. Is it still not fast enough? 0.1 seconds. I really want to see what kind of character this Zhang Shuyu is. How is it possible? I'm not the first. I'm 6.3 seconds. Is the person in front? He Yudong still wanted to say that something went wrong in the exam. But what if he thought that if he questioned, he would be disqualified from the exam? He immediately stopped talking, but his heart was still full of anger. Not only him, most of the examinees felt that Zhang Shuyu's results were unbelievable, but only a few felt that the results of the first three were faked. Outside the trial tower, the suzerains of the major sects in the entire Shanghai County were all sitting together. Tisk tisk tisk. 0.1 seconds, what am I witnessing? Witness what? Of course you are witnessing history. Old Ning, I really envy you. 2 of the top 3 belong to your sect. I'm not greedy. It would be great if one of them is a disciple of our sect. Hey, old boy, you have no chance. According to this result, the 2 Tianzhao of Xuanyuzong are disciples of Xuanwu Holy Land. Do you want them to be your disciples? Unless you use time and space to go back and return to others to be children, it's time to abduct him, ha ha ha. Ning Jie is now so excited that he can only laugh. He never thought that Zhang Shuyu is so powerful. Thanks to the care of all suzerains, I was just lucky to receive 2 outstanding disciples. It's so modest. It's too late. It's only for a while. A suzerain sneered. I don't know who was shouting everywhere after Zhang Shuli entered the Xuanwu Holy Land last year. Hey, don't say it. Lao Ning is even more embarrassing this time. Maybe this Zhang Shuyu can bring back a chief. Then I will borrow the good words from the suzerains. Let's continue to read. Ning Jie grinned in a great mood and cupped his fists. The other suzerains continued to wait with envy and hatred. The second round of assessment begins. Candidates can choose their own difficulty. The time limit is 30 minutes, and the score is calculated by the number of monsters killed. Close black lens bracket. Normal level. 1 contribution value, monster. Difficulty level. 3 contribution points, monster. Asian level. 5 contribution points, monster. Reminder. Casualties may occur in the second round of assessment. Please do what you can. If you encounter danger, you can choose to terminate the assessment. The score is based on the score at the time of termination. Zhang Shuyu didn't waste any time, and directly chose the Asian difficulty. He touched his chest, thinking of something, and raised the corners of his mouth in a good mood. The examiners who watched him were very excited. That kid chose the Asian class. It's worth watching. Ouch, really, this old man is looking forward to it. Several examiners continued to look down. LV.20 Shadowhunter, Rare, and Wei also chose the Asian difficulty. Several white-bearded old men nodded approvingly. This kid's talent is suitable for surprise attacks, and the damage is very high. One size fits all is no problem. It's reasonable to choose the Asian class. Yes, as an assassin with a rare talent, his melee attack ability should not be underestimated. If he can cultivate to level 20, he must be a character. My defense is too low, and my attack power is not as perverted as Zhang Shuyu's, and I can only attack from a distance. It seems that I can only kill one by one, and the pursuit of speed. Shu Wan gritted her teeth and made a choice. Although the score is low, it is better than being surrounded by monsters after killing a few. LV.18 Elemental Summoner, Rare, Shu Wan, I chose the general level. Seeing this, the old men smiled in relief. This kind of summoner's ability to fight alone is not high, so it is more appropriate to choose a general breakthrough one by one and use numbers to win. No one present felt that Shu Wan was stupid, but had an accurate assessment of her own strength. This child knows what to do, and when the skills are not complete, it is safer to choose this way. Never arrogant or impetuous, this is what my generation of monks should look like. After reading the top 3, the old men with white beards looked at the 4th place, He Yudong. He Yudong, who has always been proud of his talents, chose the Asian difficulty without even thinking about it. He is very confident in his combat power, and he has calculated with his clever little head that to kill one monster at the Asian level, it would take 5 to kill at the normal level. Zhang Shuyu, you wait for me, I'm number 1. Seeing LV.20 Fury Swordsman Rare, He Yudong chose the Asian class, the old men with white beards smiled and stroked their beards, nodding in satisfaction. Most of the people who repair the Wrath Sword are righteous people, and maybe they will become one of the pillars of our human race in the future. The hero sees the same thing, and the old man thinks the same way. Old man, you really don't want face. That's wrong, aren't you a hero or a bear? Stop arguing, let's see how he performs first, shall we? The swordsman Fury in previous years is also powerful. This kid performed well in the first round. You can wait and see. Zhang Shuyu waited patiently for the examination to begin. After all, there were more than 500 candidates to choose from, so the time needed should not be short. At the same time, he was also thinking about how strong the difficult level monsters were. But it doesn't matter, he has more than 100 little brothers as his thugs. If it is a bit difficult to deal with, just call a few more. All candidates have been selected. Countdown, 3, 2, 1. As the countdown ends, the second round of assessment begins. 10 meters in front of Zhang Shuyu, a vortex appeared, which was very similar to the entrance of the instance. A monster covered in bamboo knots and holding a big bamboo shoot sword came out, with many bamboo leaves on its head. This monstrous beast is full of righteousness, and its mouth is, I'm. Unfortunately, before it finished speaking, Zhang Shuyu had already let the undead puppet beside him greet him with a sword, and fell to the ground on the spot, turning into a wounded bamboo. At the same time, Zhang Shuyu's detection technique also saw the opponent's attributes. The LV.16 Bamboo Demon Sword Cultivator is still an elite. It's just that the highest attribute is only 500, a batch of dishes. The greedy monster who doesn't have a copy of the quarry in Xuanyu City. Knock a sack. This is an assessment. Of course, the assessment is based on the average level of most monks. If the monsters used in the assessment are too strong, will the Holy Land still recruit disciples? If this is the case, there is no need to complete the assessment, just block the door with a monster at the entrance of the Holy Land, and enter if you pass. Unreasonable. At this time, the bamboo demon stood up immediately, raised its bamboo shoots and wanted to chop them back. Click. The bamboo demon broke in two, lying on the ground, completely cool, and became a mature pillar. Oh, it turns out that it takes 2 swords to kill, but it's quite strong. Zhang Shuyu figured out the law of beheading the bamboo demon, and immediately hit it off with his left hand and right hand. Another undead puppet appeared and rushed towards the vortex. Now the 2 undead puppets in front of the vortex, one on the left and one on the right, raised their swords with both hands, waiting for the monster to come out. After number 2 puppet stood still for 3 seconds, the bamboo demon appeared. Click, click. With 2 sounds, a mature bamboo lay on the ground, and the bamboo shoots rolled in the distance. Zhang Shuyu glanced at the bamboo shoots, then touched his chest again. It's pretty good, so let's do it. It seems that we can fish. After that, a monster will appear every 5 seconds in the vortex. If you want to accumulate points quickly, you just need to solve the previous monster as quickly as possible. Zhang Shuyu's speed was extremely fast. For Zhang Shuyu, the second round of the evaluation of the monk's battery life was drizzle. In fact, he was still a little shocked. I didn't expect this assessment to be so simple. So he was completely relieved after watching the bamboo demon die several times without any changes. The examiners were all breathless. It turned out that Zhang Shuyu had 2 summoned creatures. And it's so strong. It can't be counted in seconds to kill a monster with 2 swords. The white-bearded old man looked at Zhang Shuyu and looked around, found a big rock and sat down, and touched his chest. The white-bearded old man who always wondered why he kept touching his chest kept staring at his hand until... Damn, is there such a thing for fun? You even brought potatoes in. There is no law of heaven. There is no law of the king. During the assessment period, he actually despised the assessment rules and gnawed potatoes. Cough. Old Lee, by the way, do our assessment rules say that eating is not allowed during the assessment? Lao Li's face was ashamed, and he blushed and said, "No, but aren't you angry?" "Of course I'm angry. God and man are both angry. Why didn't this old man think of it back then?" As they spoke, the old man angrily pushed aside the panel showing Zhang Shuyu's performance, concentrated on watching the performance of other monks, occasionally glanced at Zhang Shuyu's side, and swallowed. All the old men have one thought in their minds now: too much. It still smells like potatoes, but unfortunately I forgot to bring chili noodles. Zhang Shuyu didn't know what the examiners were thinking, and he still missed the 21st century spiked potatoes in his mind. It's still the best when fried. Ennui assessment area. And Hui's dexterous figure was like a cat, constantly wandering around the entire vortex. The bamboo demon couldn't find her figure, and looked around in a daze. The combination of extreme agility and explosive damage looks very smooth, like a perfect work of art. This girl is a bit interesting, and she hasn't wasted any power. That's right, and none of the movements are superfluous. Every step is a plan for the next few steps. I don't know why there is a feeling of pen and ink scolding Fang Chu. Indeed, every time An Wei made a move, she was crisp and clear, without delay. Moreover, the timing of interrupting the bamboo demon's move is very coincidental, and it can properly control the opponent. The skills are mastered very proficiently, and the old men with white beards all approve of An Hui's performance. Shu Wan assessment area. Shu Wan was killing monsters one by one in the general level assessment, and the attributes of these monsters were much lower than those of the Asian level. She held a law enforcement staff, numb and tense, and sent away a bamboo demon with 2 skills. Spiritual power is very important to a summoner, so she has been constantly adjusting the most suitable skill strength, trying to find the best strength and save physical and mental strength. Although it is very monotonous and not as good looking as Ennui's, it looks much more interesting than the picture of Zhang Shuyu gnawing potatoes. This child has a calm mind and is very accurate in controlling his cognition and skills. That's right, and you see, in the assessment, she knows that adjusting the most suitable skill strength and increasing skill proficiency is a malleable talent. Dong Guo Jingyang tapped the handle of the chair with his white jade knuckles, narrowing his eyes slightly. The candidate he was most concerned about was naturally Zhang Shuyu, and he didn't know how the other party performed in the 5th round of assessment. After all, those who can enter the 5th round are county-level geniuses. No, those who can enter the 5th round should be regarded as arrogance. At that time, maybe he will have the opportunity to see the true strength of the opponent. Too bad he can't see it now. He Yudong examination area. He Yudong swung the sword in his hand vigorously, as if he wanted to chop the bamboo demon in front of him into several knots. It is best to be the same as the bamboo knots on the bamboo demon. He said to himself in his heart, I will definitely be number 1, and the examiners, look at my performance. How can I be worse than that Zhang Shuyu? The smile on his face is proclaiming that he is bound to win the first place, and the arrogance in his heart is like a dragon possessed by the sky. If someone knew what was going on in his mind, they would definitely complain. You can't even compare with the 2nd and 3rd places, and you want to directly compare with the 1st. Want to fart? It is indeed in line with the characteristics of the angry swordsman. Once there is a fight, there is no sense at all. An old man shook his head. Another old man echoed, it also depends on the person, right? The angry swordsman in the past was also very rational, but this kid just can't control it. Not only that, don't forget, he hasn't entered the state of the sword of anger yet. He will be even more irrational by then, and if he consumes so much energy now, he will definitely run out of energy later on. The old man on the far side clicked his tongue twice. This is not as good as that girl Shu Wan. The other old men didn't speak, but obviously, they had similar comments on He Yudong. In the second assessment, although the result depends on the number of monsters killed, it also depends on the adaptability of these little monks. After all, you have to persevere from the beginning to the end. It would be best if the fighting state can be maintained at the beginning, but like him, the end is definitely not as good as the beginning. If it is on the battlefield, the monk must always be able to deal with the enemy, otherwise, to surrender one's life to the enemy. After continuing to read, all the examiners had a better understanding of the situation of this group of young monks, and came to a corresponding conclusion in their hearts. Back to Zhang Shuyu's side. He was still biting the potatoes slowly, bite by bite. The old men with white beards were silent, still eating. The old men were so angry that they wanted to grab him out and see how many potatoes he had hidden in his chest. Others have worked so hard to kill monsters, he came here to play in the mountains and rivers. Write it down for him. Write it down well. Let his name go down in history, and his reputation will spread far and wide. I really want to make it more difficult for him, what do you think? As soon as the words came out, all the old men secretly glanced at Dongguo Jingyang. Seeing that he didn't respond and was still thinking about something, the old men turned their heads back. No matter what, we have to be fair. We tried it for others in the last round, and it's not appropriate. After Lao Li said something, the other examiners nodded. Isn't this too angry? His progress is still the fastest. Okay, I think you are sour. Speak as if you are not sour. Everyone did not ignore the interest in Dongguo Jingyang's eyes. Obviously, he was very interested in Zhang Shuyu. What an interesting little guy. Throughout the second round of assessment, many people chose to give up halfway, and some were injured and quit. Many people couldn't stand the continuous attacks of the monsters, and there was no time to rest at all. Of course, this does not include Zhang Shuyu, who even has time to take a nap. Finally, I'm finally saved. The time has finally come, it's time for my old life. The young monks howled endlessly. Seeing the vortex stop turning, I can only feel grateful. It's not so hard to play dungeons in normal times. It's really not a human assessment. In just 30 minutes, everyone except Zhang Shuyu was almost exhausted. At this moment, Shu Wan's face turned pale, and her blood color faded a lot. Phew, finally, it's over. Throughout the assessment, she tried her best to adjust the intensity of her skills, but it was still inevitable to consume almost all of her mental power. If you can use pills, forget it, only Dansho has this benefit. He Yudong really did as the old men predicted. He exerted too much strength in the early stage, but was extremely weak in the later stage, and in the end he couldn't even lift his sword. He lay on the ground breathing heavily, covering his face with his wide sleeves, eyes closed. It's f***ing tiring, but it's worth it to enter the Holy Land. End of the second round of assessment, assessment ranking. Number 1. Zhang Shuyu, contribution value 100 plus 1650. Second place, Anhui, contribution value 80 plus 525. Third place, Shu Wan, contribution value 50 plus 215. Fourth place, He Yudong, contribution value 30 plus 205. The number of participants in the second round of assessment, 512. The number of people who were injured or gave up the assessment voluntarily, 256. The rest of the monks can enter the third round of assessment. The next round is more difficult, and may be life-threatening. Please decide whether to continue to participate. Close black lens bracket. Hey, I don't know how many children will choose to give up this year. It should be the same as before. Now the remaining people are only April 1st, and if you give up, there will be more than 100 people left. No. How is it possible? How is this possible? How did he do it? The moment he saw the ranking clearly, He Yudong immediately jumped up from the ground. He watched in disbelief behind Zhang Shuyu's contribution. A monster appears in 5 seconds, up to 12 in a minute, and the contribution value is 1800 for 30 minutes, but Zhang Shuyu got 1650 contribution value after the whole assessment. On average, wouldn't it kill 11 monsters per minute? Under normal circumstances, like in Wei, killing 105 monsters is already considered perverted. It is equivalent to 3.5 monsters per minute. The hunting speed of most geniuses is between 2 and 3 per minute. He Yudong had an impulse in his heart to question Zhang Shuyu's cheating. No, this is questioning the authority of the ruler of the Xuanwu continent. Who would dare to blatantly cheat in full view? And in the core ruling layer of the Xuanwu continent, you can also see the performance of the Coriander County. If he dared to question, he believed that he would be kicked out of the trial tower in the next second. As for whether Zhang Shuyu cheated, I will investigate slowly. The loss outweighs the gain. Outside the trial tower, Ning Jie, who was drinking tea slowly, suddenly stopped. He thought that Zhang Shuyu might be able to get a contribution value of 600 or 700, but he definitely didn't appear at the top of the list with a crushing attitude, which was twice as high as the second place. You must know that Zhang Yuyan, who was once amazingly talented, only had more than 700 contribution points. Even Zhang Shuyu's older sister is only in her early 60s. He swallowed, stood up, rubbed his eyes again, and blinked. Oh, Lao Ning, stop rubbing it. It's true. Zhang Shuyu of your sect has earned more than 1,000 contribution points. A suzerain next to Ning Jie couldn't stand it anymore, and reminded him. This. Ha ha ha. Lao Ning, why are you so excited that you can't even speak? Isn't he excited because he is going to throw a big banquet for the guests? A group of suzerains made fun of Ning Jie, who wanted to know what Zhang Shuyu did in the trial tower. At the same time, the young monks were all caught in a tangle. After all, I have passed the second round of exams, and it is not easy to get to this point, but the next round will be life-threatening. In the end is to continue, or give up. The thoughts of the little dolls and the old fried dough sticks are clear. How about we push these little dolls again? It's not the same thing if we delay like this. Of course, the main reason is to watch the show, and it must be added to the flames. Cultivators, you can enter the Holy Land even if you give up now. I will give you an hourglass to think about it. If you still don't choose after the last grain of sand falls, you will be considered as accepting the third round of assessment. Then, an hourglass appeared in front of the young monks. Bad old men are very bad. Let everyone see the hourglass, but don't tell the time. The little dolls were terrified as they watched the sand falling rapidly, but it was just to enter the Holy Land. If they lost their lives because of this, wouldn't it be worth it? Many people could no longer struggle with it, and immediately chose to quit. There are also counterproductive ones. Damn, tell me to quit, but I still don't want to quit. I want to see if an assessment can really kill me. Done. One life, and 18 years later, he will be a hero again. Of course, no one will lose their lives in the trial tower, but the old men like to see how the psychological quality of each young monk is. These are counterproductive, just to their appetite. After all, those who can pass the third round will mostly be the pillars of the human race in the future, who will support the human race. Finally, another quarter of the people were persuaded to leave. But passing the second round is considered a good result, and no matter what, you can enter the Holy Land. As for the remaining people, their targets are naturally those holy places that are more powerful. In the trial tower, spiritual energy diffused out, covering every monk participating in the assessment. Everyone's fatigue was swept away, and their mental strength was fully restored. If it wasn't because he didn't want to be too ostentatious, Zhang Shuyu could backhand and summon a few younger brothers on the spot. Third round of assessment, killing martial level monsters. Normal level, 100 contribution points, difficult level, 300 contribution points, Asian level, 500 contribution points. Zhang Shuyu knew in his heart that the last round was about endurance, and this time it was to see the monk's personal limit. Interesting, the teacher who designed the assessment is very smart. It would be even better if you can send an Easter egg. Single-handedly picking out a martial level monster is quite a challenge for every skill cultivator without spell boosts or healing. Zhang Shuyu still clicked Asian class with no mistakes. Hey, this Zhang Shuyu really chose the Asian class again. Isn't this expected? What a fuss, thanks to the fact that you have lived for so many years. Old Li rolled his eyes at the first old man who spoke. Isn't this just to see if he will be cowardly? You old man, you choke me all day long. Hey, old Zhang Lao Li, stop arguing. This time the county chief should be Zhang Shuyu, what do you think? I feel the same way, but the fifth round, the stakes are too high, and there's no way anyone can do better than him. After many years of invigilation, there are also many county chiefs who have finally risen through accumulation. Who knows whether Zhang Shuyu will shine until the end? And one of the old men who wanted to accumulate a lot of money was cheering himself up. HMPH. Just wait. The young master is the final candidate for the county chief, and only I am worthy of that position. Don't let me meet you, a disaster star, or I will treat you well with my sword. He Yudong swore viciously that the county chief was bound to win. But he didn't expect that in the future, he might never have the chance to beat Zhang Shuyu again. The third round of assessment started in full swing. Since there was only one monster to deal with, the top few all chose the Asian level. The monster is still a bamboo monster, but the one in front of him is clearly more powerful. Seeing that the countdown is over, the enchantment disappears. The two undead puppets rushed forward as before, slashing with their skills one left and one right. Game over. Because the bamboo demon is standing on the flying bamboo shoots, its strength is not comparable to that of the ordinary bamboo demon before. But, looking at the data of LV.18 bamboo fairy Marshall in front of him, Zhang Shuyu felt unreal. The data of his own undead puppet 6200 is 6 times the highest value of immortal Takenaka. What else is this? It was only slightly stronger than the general level monster he encountered in the quarry. Zhang Shuyu touched his forehead. It's not that I bully the beast, it's that the beast is too fragile. But he also knows that if it is really an Asian level monster, even if it is not a martial level monster, it is just an ordinary one. I am afraid that many monks, such as Shu Wan, will find it difficult to deal with it. That would be no different from going to war. Hey, this little monster, does it really take the 5th round to get to his bottom? If this is seen by outsiders, it may be suspected that there is something wrong with the photo stone. No, haven't you noticed that his summoned creatures can use skills? Question mark, question mark, question mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The entire top floor of the trial tower was suddenly quiet, and a needle could be heard. The martial level has been instantly killed, although it has been weakened, compared to the normal performance of monks. There is no doubt about Zhang Shuyu's strength. But the old men are still very curious, where is Zhang Shuyu's background? Even and Wei had to keep wandering around the scene, sneaking up on Zhu Zongxian from time to time. So did Shu Wan, who kept kiting to avoid Zhu Zongxian's attack, finding the right time to shoot out from time to time. What's more, people like He Yudong directly resisted with their physical bodies, covered in blood. Has Zhang Shuyu moved? From beginning to end, it seems that I have been gnawing potatoes in place. Like an annoying groundhog. Of course, the bad old men didn't hate him. I have a successor in Shanghai County. Glorious, double the face. Unfortunately, we don't have permission to watch the 5th round. As Lao Li said so, the other old men all looked at Dongguo Jingyang, who was sitting in the first place. The young man in red rolled over his sleeves and raised his eyebrows. See what I do. Let me tell you first, I can't watch. Then, dare to ask who has the authority. Dongguo Jingyang fiddled with his fingers leisurely, and spoke leisurely. Oh, you can only see 2 hands in the whole Xuanwu continent. Seeing the old men's eyeballs rolling, how could Dongguo Jingyang not understand the little juju in their hearts? I advise you, don't inquire about things you shouldn't inquire about. Otherwise, it's hard to live to this age. Wouldn't it be in vain? Don't you think so, huh? The young man's voice rises, faintly threatening and warning. The old men withdrew their gazes embarrassingly, giggling, trying to hide their guilt and embarrassment. What did Lord Dongguo say? This old bone is looking forward to living a few more years. Yes, we wish we could live a few more years. Seeing this, Dongguo Jingyang raised the corners of his mouth in a good mood. That is to say, he found a baby bump today, so he was in a good mood. Let me remind these old urchins, otherwise he wouldn't have said a word. Of course, a few old fried dough sticks who have lived a long time can also see that the baby bump is Zhang Shuyu. After a stick of incense passed, the 3rd round of assessment was over. Many people have successfully killed Zhu Zongxian and gained contribution points. Of course, there are also many who failed to kill the monsters within the time limit, or who were injured and were forcibly sent out of the trial tower. But even if you don't pass the third round of tests, you can go to a good holy place. End of the third round of assessment, assessment ranking. Number 1. Zhang Shuyu, contribution value 100 plus 1650 plus 500. Second place. Anhui, contribution value 80 plus 525 plus 500. Third place. Xu Wan, contribution value 50 plus 215 plus 500. Fourth place. He Yudong, contribution value 30 plus 205 plus 500. The number of participants in the third round of assessment, 192. The number of people injured or failed in the assessment, 64. The rest of the monks can enter the fourth round of assessment, and now everyone's assessment results are enough to enter the top 30 sacred places in Shuangwu continent. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Still the same sentence, the next round will be more difficult, and maybe life-threatening. Please, monks, continue to participate at your discretion. Close black lens bracket. No one chose to give up in this round, they have come to this point, are they still afraid of the fourth round? A spiritual energy filled with a strong smell of oxygen fell, and each monk returned to his peak state. He Yudong is still in the fourth place, and he knows in his heart that there is no way to narrow the gap in this round. He can only hope that the next round can be turned against the wind, otherwise, he can only watch the fifth round. All opportunities are in the next round. Boss and Xu Wan are really amazing. Awesome. Although Sun Yangyang ranks in the 50s, it does not prevent him from praising Zhang Shuyu. After all, the holy land of coriander he wants to enter is already guaranteed. Zhang Shuyu also noticed Sun Yangyang's ranking, and boasted in his heart, not bad. Although he was joking and laughing on weekdays, he was very arrogant in his bones, and he would definitely participate in the fourth round of assessment. There are so many monsters in the fourth round, and Zhang Shuyu only has 2 summoned creatures. I don't know how he plans to deal with them. HMPH, just teach this kid a lesson. Let him despise the assessment. Let him eat potatoes. Hey, old Li, your personal emotions are a bit heavy. Ahem. Dong Guo Jingyang coughed lightly. All the old men with white beards paused, blinked their small Kazilan eyes, and looked over in confusion. I saw Dong Guo Jingyang sitting up straight, looking at the image with flickering eyes. Zhang Shuyu, I guess he still has a hole in his hand. He should still be number 1 this round. Question mark exclamation mark. Lao Li was shocked. The other old examiners were also shocked. Master Dong Guo, may I ask how you got it? The young man in red held his forehead. How could someone who was old and cunning just ask such a question? Fortunately, someone took over the conversation for him. Old Zhang, don't you see how happy Zhang Shuyu is now? Another 100 will probably be fine. Instructions for the fourth round of assessment. Everyone needs to deal with 10 waves of small beasts. In a wave of beasts, there are 10 monsters with an interval of 1 minute. Regardless of whether the monks have finished solving the previous monsters, the next wave of monsters will appear. The last wave of monsters is led by martial-level monsters, and if all of them are eliminated, the assessment is successful. Close black lens bracket. A monster with 10 contribution points, the total contribution value is doubled if the assessment is successful, and the contribution value is 2,000. Close black lens bracket. The old man's voice fell, and the enchantment in front of Zhang Shuyu appeared again. There are 10 bamboo demons standing inside, all of them are LV.16. It's just that their major paths and attack methods are no longer the same. There are sword repairers, archers, and magicians. The difficulty is at least 10 times that of the previous round. It seems that this level assesses the ability of group attack or the efficiency of defeating one by one. What's more, there are still 10 waves, and the required stamina and mental power have doubled. If Xu Wan met, it might be a little difficult, but he. Zhang Shuyu raised his hand and waved lightly. A third undead puppet appeared. The 3 cute puppet boys ran forward with clumsy steps, raised their swords in both hands, and jumped up. 3 bamboo demon archers, over. 3 bamboo demon sword cultivators, over. 4 mermaid magicians, under 3 golems plus a soul fire from Zhang Shuyu. He was also honorably sacrificed. In 3 seconds, the entire field is cleared. The quintessence of the country. This kid is very scheming. There is a third summoning Holy Spirit. Tisk. If this is your grandson, you must have your tail up to the sky, and you are still very scheming, don't mislead us. Hey, I knew he had a whole card, but I really didn't expect him to be able to summon a third one. Maybe he can still summon it, there must be someone behind him. Such a young man is good, isn't he? Our human race needs such a courageous and powerful junior. As soon as Dongguo Jingyang said this, several old men all stroked their beards and lowered their heads in thought. Indeed, only in this way can the human race have a brilliant future. Ah! A voice came, breaking the solemn atmosphere and silence on the top floor of the trial tower. Seeing Zhang Shuyu eating potatoes again, Lao Li couldn't see the feeling of looking down on the world that Tianzhao should have at all. He didn't know why for a moment, so he sat down a few inches in the chair with anger. Don't watch it. It's really boring, it's more interesting to look at other dolls. This centuries-old vinegar smell, It was rare for Lao Zheng to see Lao Li like this, with a smile on his face. But he and the other examiners were also too lazy to continue looking at Zhang Shuyu, and put the pictures of other candidates at the front. What kind of flowers can you see when he eats potatoes? Anyway, the first place in this round must belong to that male doll again. The boy, who was ignorant of the opinions of the old men because of him, couldn't help but find a rock and sit down. Hey, there are no surprises at all, it's better to play a copy and go all the way through. Made me sleepy. Maybe, the county chief, I can really try it. It doesn't seem to be challenging. Dongguo Jingyang's eyes were deep, and he separated Zhang Shuyu's image into a small panel and brought it in front of him, looking at it with great interest. When he heard Zhang Shuyu's words, he just raised his eyebrows. It seems that there is no surprise that the kid broke through the dungeon and wanted to take the county chief. Ennui Assessment Area. Shadow hunters have always been suitable for single-person assault operations, most suitable for assassinations, so group attacks are a very difficult test for Enwei. She can only work hard to break through one by one, first solve the troublesome magicians and archers who harass her from time to time, and then solve the simpler sword repair. Although it is hard to fight like this, the hard work pays off. Her efforts, as well as every proper containment and control, and various fighting skills such as using strength to fight, all affected the hearts of the examiners. If Zhang Shuyu was one of the old men, he would probably feel emotional. It is really comparable to a wonderful Hollywood action blockbuster. Compared with Zhang Shuyu's laid-back painting style, they are completely two extremes. Shu Wan Assessment Area. Shu Wan is much more relaxed than Enwei, because her summoner skill is group damage, one ice and one fire, which is extremely easy to use. Although the skill level is still relatively low, fortunately, her explosive fire technique can already track the enemy. The fly in the ointment is that the level is too low, and the damage does not meet the requirements, but it can make the bamboo demon shooter and the mermaid magician suffer a lot. As for the agile and physically tyrannical swordsman, her frost can also freeze the opponent for a period of time, giving her a chance to increase the distance between the two sides. Under such tugging, Shu Wan's progress was much faster than Enhui's. He Yudong Examination Area. This brainless young master of the Qingsong faction has completely forgotten his head teacher's advice on why not go. He still put in all his strength from the beginning, and after the third round, he didn't have the slightest thought to reflect on his fighting style. He just wanted to quickly kill more monsters, otherwise he would suffer later. Although several old men didn't approve of his fighting style, it has to be said that he swung a pair of swords containing anger and power directly to the monster's face, which was more fun than Zhang Shuyu's in any way. The difficulty of the fourth round of assessment had increased by more than 10 times, but now the first wave of monsters was enough for these young dolls, and the second and third waves followed. Finally, nearly half of the people stopped here. And Sun Yangyang, whose defense is stronger than most people, also came to the end of the fifth wave. Those who can make it to the fourth round are considered geniuses. But the person who was sent out was still pale, looking at the trial tower with lingering fear. It's terrible. There are too many, my scalp is numb, and I don't know how the first place is. I guess they are much better than you and me. Every wave is cleaned up. Didn't you see the results of the first round? 0.1 seconds. Sigh, I thought I was already a genius, but God is jealous of talents. There is such a shining person above me. Hearing this, Sun Yangyang stretched out his hand proudly to clap. The person who was suddenly slapped on the shoulder almost jumped up in fright. Before he had an attack, he heard Sun Yangyang shaking his head and talking eloquently. My elder brother Zhang Shuyu is going to pass the 4th round, it's just a trivial matter. As soon as the words fell, the people around couldn't help pricking up their ears, and took a few steps towards Sun Yangyang. How do fellow Taoists say this? Why did fellow Taoists say such a thing? Seeing this, Sun Yangyang was immediately elated, and became mighty. He cleared his throat. Xuanyu City knows, right? Our Xuanyu City has a dungeon, LV.17. But, my elder brother Zhang Shuyulf.12 entered the hard-level dungeon by himself from beginning to end. Real or fake, everyone just thought it was the same as listening to the heavenly scriptures, and even suspected that Sun Yangyang was a storyteller. Seeing people's disbelief, Sun Yangyang got excited and took Zhang Shuyu with him to complete the dungeon in a few minutes. How thrilling, how the whole dungeon was blown up by 3 crashes. Of course, no one would believe what he said, no matter whether he added oil and vinegar or not. How can anyone wipe out the dungeon in a few minutes? Nonsense. Sun Yangyang doesn't care whether others believe it or not, he has been holding back for a long time, and finally he can show it off. 2 words, comfortable. And the reason why he held back for so long was because he had already found the chief bettor of Shanghai County in the Forum Square of Yujian, and he bet most of his net worth 2,000 spirit stones to Zhang Shuyu. If people knew about it in advance, the game wouldn't be open. After all, there are a lot of geniuses in the central city of Shanghai County. I don't know how much he can earn this time. Top floor of Trial Tower. A few old men surrounded the only 5 remaining pictures, stroking their beards or tugging at their sleeves from time to time in excitement. In short, just can't sit still. They didn't expect that in this 4th round of assessment, a dark horse Zhang Ce would actually come out. LV.18 Sword Heart Illumination Rare Zhang Ce. His frame is the biggest at the moment, and his fight scenes are the most exciting. In the picture, Zhang Ce is holding a sword and walking among the monsters. First of all, he is a swordsman, but his agility is no less than that of An Wei. And every attack of his is very fast, accurate and ruthless. Although every effort seems to be very gentle, but in fact the sword is deadly. Countless bamboo demons were broken in 2 and lay at his feet, and the mermaid in the lake also fell silent. Zhang Ce, is this kid from the Zhang family, a family of swordsmen? Yes, I think it is, otherwise I wouldn't know the tradition of assessment, and know the key to gaining contribution points in the next 2 rounds, so I will go all out now. No wonder, it's obviously a rare talent, but now it's starting to show its edge. This kind of battle scene is wonderful, and it's refreshing to watch this old man. The Zhang family, a family of sword repairers, once participated in the formulation of the rules of the big exam, and almost all the people who came out of the Zhang family were sword repairers, and they were considered a force not to be underestimated in the cultivation world. At the same time, after the start of the 8th wave of beasts, except for Zhang Shuyu, the battles of the other 4 entered a fierce stage. Ennui began to explode with unprecedented damage, her body became more agile, and the speed of harvesting was accelerated. Xu Wan didn't save her energy any longer, and used her skills to the extreme, circling the monsters together, and then throwing fireballs and frost. And He Yudong was also in the state of unfolding the sword of anger, and his whole body seemed to be surrounded by sparks, rushing towards the leftover and new beast tide. As for Zhang Shuyu, he waited unhurriedly for the monster to appear. After everything was resolved, he rubbed his stomach and felt a little full. Until the beginning of the 10th round, after the undead puppet emptied the martial level monsters and little monsters in the assessment area, he began to wait for nearly a minute. The old men were too lazy to complain, they only had envy and hatred in their hearts. The 4th round of assessment is over, the number of participants is 128, and only 5 people passed the assessment. The assessment ranking is as follows. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.